Hello and welcome to the Dreaming and Doing podcast with me, Nicky Raby. I'm an actor, coach, writer, speaker, podcaster and a mum. And in my coaching work, I work with creatives, personal brands, freelancers and small businesses. In my podcast, I talk about success, but not in a traditional sense. I have conversations with those who have built a business from something they love or who have made a pivot in their career. Also those who have built a brand or a job that maybe didn't exist when they were at school and they found a way to monetize their skills, talents and expertise. I've spoken to loads of incredible people, coaches, designers, journalists, app creators, magazine editors, bloggers, content creators, authors, and all-round movers and shakers. I ask the questions that you want to know the answer to. So how they started, about money, saying no, saying yes, pitching, presenting, putting yourself out there even though it terrifies you, standing out in a busy online world, growing, scaling and making your work for you and your circumstances. The show notes are always at nickyraby.com/podcast and the conversation continues across social media, often on Instagram, my favourite platform, at Nicky Raby. Thanks so much for listening. It's great to have you with us. In today's episode, I'm talking to Sommer Pyne, who is the creator and owner of House Curious. Go on over to her social media platforms. It's full of wonderful, beautiful things. I wanted to talk to Sommer about how she decided to open up her home and create a new business from it. Workshops, but also she has an online store in which she sells things from. And it's really interesting in this episode because she really talks behind the scenes of the sort of the glossy exterior of how she had to find strength in her personal life and how she was able to sort of use that as an impetus to not wait but to actually kind of go for it and figure out a plan to make it happen. Just a little trigger warning, as I feel like it's my responsibility as the host and producer of this podcast. We do talk about premature babies in this episode, so if that's something that may be a trigger for you, I just wanted to say that up front as well. As always, please come over to Instagram, tag me wherever you're listening at Nicky Raby, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. Please rate, review, subscribe, share, all that lovely stuff. It helps more people find the episode and I think they'll love it too. I love hearing your messages, so thank you so much and keep them coming. Here it is. Enjoy. Hey Sommer, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm so chuffed to speak to you today. And I love following along on Instagram. I just love that peek of what you're doing and I would need one of those hanging chairs in my life. Let's start with you. What do you do? How would you describe your job title?
It's not that tricky. I guess, I run a shop, an online lifestyle shop called House Curious. Which we sell everything from homewares and small pieces of furniture to beauty products and jewellery and all sorts of things. But House Curious initially started in my home, and it was the concept was to invite strangers into my home, which sounds a bit odd, to learn.
We all put our car keys in the middle of the table.
Yeah, and then we just, it wasn't quite like that. But it was like to invite people to my home to learn a craft. So it might be something like candle and calligraphy workshop or a cooking workshop. And then there would be a meal involved. So it was all about getting people together who shared similar passions and then sharing a meal together, because I really felt at the time, this is a couple of years ago now, there was a real need for people to have real connections.
Yes.
We're so bogged down with work and the stresses of life, and our heads planted in our phone, and whilst we're making connections online through Instagram and different social platforms, I just felt like we needed to kind of bring that offline, and create these beautiful events and really intimate events done really nicely in my home, which I would hope was a really nice, I don't know, like just a really nice tone to start an evening, by inviting someone into my home. And I guess being Australian, we kind of have that open door policy, in the neighbourhood, everybody, your next door neighbours, and they might pop round to borrow some milk. And I just feel like sometimes in London, it can be a little bit lonely.
Yes.
And as you get older and you have a family, it's quite hard to meet new people. You might meet people through school, but they might not be necessarily your type. Or, it's not like you're going clubbing every weekend. So it's just like,
what? I thought you were mum life.
I have my moments. But yeah, I just thought there must be a nicer way for people just to come together, and that whole thing gathering around a table. I just think sort of sets the tone for deeper connections and friendship.
And it becomes quite scary sometimes, sort of going to things by yourself as an adult. You can't just start playing Lego with somebody. Like, you've got to make eye contact and actually have a conversation. So having something that distracts from that sort of, hey, so what do? You can make kind of small talk in other ways if you're a bit of an introvert, or, getting out after you've just become a parent, they feel quite big hurdles sometimes.
Yeah, and that's, it's been great. Like, when people have come to my house, everyone's really nervous, and everyone's chatting. They're probably a little bit tipsy, and but and it's just great. And it's just like when people are creative, it just gives you that renewed sort of energy. And again, that just those connections with other people is quite magical.
Definitely. How did it start for you? Like, what's your career journey up until now? Have you always sort of been in this space of being creative?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a creative type of person. Like, I was in advertising, actually. I was a senior account director, and I worked on major brands like Unilever, Nestle, and all sorts. And I did that probably for like 12 years. And I started off in Sydney. That's actually where I'm from, is Australia. And I moved over here because I knew the London creative scene was huge. And if you wanted to make it in advertising, that's where you went, apparently. And so I did that, and I loved it. And I got to travel and experience, a new culture. And, living in a new country has its challenges. But, I really enjoyed that. But throughout, I guess, as I got more senior, it became less creative. There's lots of politics involved.
Yeah.
I was dealing with lots of wankers, if I'm honest.
No, what a surprise.
I know. And, I'd have bosses that are a bit inappropriate at times, and just there's so many egos. And I was just like, I'm done. Like, I'm just not enjoying this anymore. And I think when you're losing the joy for something, it's time to make changes. And I guess in the background, there was always this thing bubbling in my head that one day my ultimate success would be to run my own business, run it my way, run it in a more feminine way, and on my terms. And so I didn't really know what that was going to be. I knew it was something to do with interiors or something around that area. But I just didn't really know. So that was going on. And if you speak to any of my friends, they're like, oh my goodness, do you remember like 20 years ago when you were talking about, and now we're here and you're doing it? I'm like, I know, it's actually quite amazing that I've actually done it.
Yeah. And we're so like, sometimes when we're in it and it's our thing and it's personal and it's all about us, then you actually need those people around you going, look, like it's the yogic thing of like, take a breath and check in with where you are. And you're like, oh, I am where I thought I was going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And and you're right. And sometimes you just have to take that moment and actually recognize the little successes that you've had or the little wins, because often we're like, okay, we've done that, what's next? And we actually don't give ourselves that time to celebrate,
Yeah, definitely.
And I'm looking to do that more and more.
So when you started kind of, doing up your house and having that sort of huge project, did you anticipate that it would become a business, that it would sort of intertwine with a new venture?
No, not at the beginning. I mean, So basically, I should probably give you a little bit of backstory. So I eventually found the courage to leave my advertising job. And luckily for me, they actually wanted me to go to Geneva to head up a team there. And I was like, I just got engaged and we had children, like that's not for me. And so I was able to get voluntary redundancy. So that was brilliant. So I had a bit of cash. And I thought, I actually don't exactly know what I'm going to do. But one of my dreams is to renovate a house or properties, do it up and sell it. And so I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to give property developing a go. I used to watch Property Ladder and I was obsessed with it.
Oh, me too. I feel like Sarah Beanie would have that effect of like if I met Brad Pitt, like I just want to go, I just really love that house that you did in Solihull. It was amazing.
I know. So I was so obsessed with that. And so I thought, I think I can do this. And so I convinced was he my husband then? No, I think he's my fiance then, but I convinced him to invest as well. And I was like, right, this is my full-time job. But it wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. And I guess leaving my job in advertising, which I'd done for so many years, it was a real shift in, like waking up and not having to go to the office and almost like I had this bit of like a life crisis, like who am I? Like that job almost defined me.
Yes. And it's so sociable as well. Like there's so many blurred lines of everybody goes to the pub or there's always a thing of schmoozing clients and all of that.
And you've got a paycheck at the end of the month, So it was kind of like the unknown. And I was a bit worried about what I was getting into because, I didn't have any experience. But it took me 6 months to find my first property. And in the end, I kind of just had to go with, I went to all the auctions, I did everything you can imagine, but there's just nothing out there. I'd always get outbidded. And eventually I found this property and it wasn't perfect. It looked like it had squatters in there and there was rats running around and it was disgusting, but it was a really nice street. I could see the potential, although there was no room to increase the square footage. So I thought, I don't know, what am I doing? But anyway, I got the property at a really good price. I made, minor adjustments, knocked through a few walls, new kitchen, new bathroom. Luckily,
kept the rats.
Got rid of the rats.
No, we'll keep the rats. They're lovely. They're friends. Oh my God, that's not good with rodents in the slightest. So I admire your courage for doing that too.
Yeah, I think all the building work scared them, so that was fine. And and the market shot up, and all of a sudden I got it valued, and I'm like, wow, I've made a profit. This is amazing. And I had been literally done like all the painting myself, and I was there till midnight in tears, going, "What am I doing?
Wow.
Like this is shit." Just really doubting myself. But in the end, I held on to that property, rented it out because like the rental income was very good. And then, like before I knew it, I had about 6 properties on the go.
Wow!
Managing them all and doing all that, and it was fine. But what I did realize is that I didn't really enjoy it. I love the transformation of going from a rundown building and making it beautiful. I love that. But the pressure of like the whole business side of it and working with builders and not really knowing enough, just winging it every day, I just didn't really enjoy it. So for me, it was like, and looking back, it was a stepping stone for me. And it was great because I proved to myself that when I'm focused, I can do something. And it gave me loads of experience. And then, so I guess I was still kind of working out what I wanted to do. And I think if you don't know, like if you don't really have that focus and you have, you know what it is, it's quite daunting. That's the scariest bit. I think once you know, then, it's like, right, well, I know what I need to do. I just need to do a plan and I can do it step by step. And that's the easy part, I think. But coming up with the idea is the hardest.
And like when you're doing that as like a proper grown up, not when you're like 17 and everybody's figuring it out, because by that stage people are quite established in their careers and things are happening and people are sort of going places. And sometimes if you're still in that fog of like, I don't really know what this is, it can be quite daunting.
It's really scary. And I had massive fear. And that's why for so many years I never actually created a business because I was scared. But something really big happened in my life, which pretty much tipped my whole world upside down. And that then gave me the confidence to go after what it is that I wanted. And I basically my husband and I, we got married, and it was amazing. And we delayed our honeymoon. By the time we got to our honeymoon, which was in South America, I was pregnant. I think I was about 23 weeks pregnant, like almost 6 months. And we went on this amazing trip, and everything was perfect. I probably would say we were at the happiest we've ever been in our life. Mm-hmm. And it just felt like we had the world at our feet and we could do anything. And my husband's one of those, he's a businessman, and he's done amazing things. And so he's very supportive, and I just felt like with him I could, conquer the world. Yeah. And then anyway, so we got back from South America, and I just did not feel right. Like, I felt something was wrong. And so I went to the doctors and said, I just want you to check my baby. I think we used to call her the peanut then. Check the peanuts. And they're like, yeah, her heart's fine. There's nothing wrong. Like, you're okay. Okay. And then that night, I could feel her like kicking me really intensely, like I've never felt before. And then it just stopped. She just stopped. Mm-hmm. And for the next couple of days, I didn't feel her. And so by the time, I think it was a Sunday, and I was really worried, and my husband's mother is a midwife. And so we called her and just said, this is the situation. And she said, I think you should go to hospital. So we went to hospital. As we were getting there, I started feeling ill, and we had to wait for like 3 hours, and it was chaos. Like, everyone was just running around. There was not enough staff. And I'm like, I just want to get out of here. I'm getting sick. This hospital's making me sick.
Yeah.
And then eventually they looked at me, and they just, they say, well, there's a heartbeat there. Come back tomorrow. And bless my husband, because I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go. My husband's like, no, we have not just sat here.
Yes.
You have to go. I want you to do a scan, and I want you to check her everything. And sure enough, they scanned me, and they said, look, the baby's not moving, but there's a heartbeat. There's not much we can do. We suggest you go home. We went home, and then that night I got like the most awful fever, vomiting, hot sweats, delirious, cramping in my stomach. And I was like, oh my goodness, like I must just have some tummy bug, And then my husband, I think I got up to be sick, and like something went on down there. And I was like, oh God, what's going on? My husband's like, I think you're in labor.
Whoa.
I'm like, I can't. Like, I'm only 26 weeks by this stage. Can't be. It's just, must. And he's like, no, I think we need to go because, So yeah, sure enough, I was in labor.
And the horror of like sometimes the bloke going, yeah, we're really positive and we're in this together, but we need some medical intervention here as well.
It was just crazy. And, sure enough, I won't go through the whole thing because it's quite a long, drawn out story, but basically they, after, many hours in the hospital, they realized that I was very ill and that the baby was also ill, Lila. And so it was like one of those situations where they had to keep her in me for a certain amount of time. So they gave me certain drugs so that her lungs could develop so she could breathe when she came out. If she didn't have those drugs in her, she wouldn't survive. But at the same time, the more she was in me, she was getting sicker. It was just a really horrible situation. And I'm delirious. And 24 hours later, I have this emergency sort of birth. And it was horrific. And my little girl was born and put on life support straight away. And it turned out that she had meningitis and she was completely septic. And the chances of survival was pretty slim. Gosh. And like my whole world just stopped then. And I remember, after it took me a while to even go and see her, but I remember going to see her and she was in the little incubator and her whole body was like moving from the life support. And I almost collapsed because I just couldn't believe this little baby that I've been carrying and nurturing. And I guess for me, I come from my childhood wasn't so great. And so I've developed this my whole life to create a family and to give my babies the life that I didn't have. But it came crashing down because I was like, here, I've got this beautiful life to share with you, but you're in an incubator on life support. I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. And, we obviously went through, it was a roller coaster of a journey, and, we didn't know if she was going to survive. We didn't know if she was going to walk. We didn't know how much brain damage she had. There was all these things. And, thankfully, after 10 weeks in hospital, she came home on oxygen. We still had no idea, how she was going to be. And that was really frightening. But that whole experience, for me, in a way, was a positive one. And, we're still going through things. But for me, I had to take out a positive out of it because it was so traumatic. And I don't think I've ever felt pain like that ever. But her Lila's fighting spirit, and the way she this little baby, I just couldn't believe it, against all the odds, came out as a fighter. She still is a fighter on a daily basis. It drives me mad. But
yeah,
because of her personality and what we went through, it just made me realize how precious life is. And I kind of wanted to show her that I was just as brave as her, almost, you know what I mean? And so I just thought, I've got to do stuff that, that I've dreamt about, and I've got to show Lila that no matter who you are, where you are in life, you can do it as long as you've got the focus, determination, and that you're willing to work hard. So I guess at that moment, I decided I'm just going to go after anything that I want. I'm not going to hold back anymore. And I had to take 2 years off then to look after Lila because she needed that. She had heart problems, she had breathing problems. We had to do, all this physio and, constantly seeing specialists and emergency trips to the hospital where she's not breathing properly, all sorts of things that we had to deal with. So I just had to give up on everything at that time and just focus on her. And so I guess from that point on, once we went through that journey, I did get to a stage where I was like, okay, it's really time for me to focus on me for a little bit and work out what I'm going to do.
Yeah. And I think there's something, it's so funny when our children reflect these things back to us of they're really strong or resilient or energetic or impassioned about stuff. And it kind of helps you to remember who you are as well, going, well, I sort of produced this child, so there must be something in me perhaps that can lead the way on it. And I think those moments with sort of when life throws just unexpected crazy situations, it does make you reflect, and it does help you to sort of guide a way forward. So how did you build from there? Was there a sort of strategy that you followed, or did you get people on board to help you? Did you go to workshops or night school or all of that? Night school sounds so 90s, but you know what I mean.
So I basically made the decision that, okay, I'm going to go for it. And I thought that I would just put myself out there. I still didn't have the idea. So I would go to networking events. I started going to Mother's Meeting, which was really good for me at the time, to meet other mums just like me doing similar things, trying to find inspiration. And that really helped. And obviously my husband, because he's very business minded, I'd always speak to him and sort of bounce ideas off him. And I had a few ideas, and then we sold all our property, and then we were doing our home, which was quite a big task. And so whilst we were doing that, the way I was talking about my home, I kept saying, well, do you know what? I would love to do this, and I want it to be really big here and open so we can have friends over, and I really want to share my home with our friends because I do feel very privileged that we can have a nice home. And then, well, should we do a bar? I really want to do a bar. And it's
and then suddenly the possibilities become endless. You're like, let's do it.
And at the same time, I had this idea that I wanted to have a shop, but I wanted it to be a concept shop. So very similar to, I don't know if you go to Ibiza, but we were married in Ibiza and we go there every year, and they have shops there where you can go and eat, but then there's a boutique where you can buy clothing and accessories, and you might be able to do a yoga class. And it's really cool. And so I thought, wouldn't it be great if I could create a space where you can go and shop beautiful pieces, you could have a wine, you could have, I don't know, nice food, and you could do workshops. I was like, wouldn't that be brilliant? But in my head, and at the time, because I still have Lila, who was very, needy, obviously, and needed a lot of my time, I thought, I don't know if I can really commit to doing something like that. It would mean large investment, partners, all that kind of stuff. I just wasn't ready. But then as we were doing my house, and I thought, why can't I just bring it in? Like, why can't I bring it at home? Because I could do something very similar, but it would be more personable and quite different. Like, I didn't really know of anyone doing anything like that at the time. And my husband's like, yeah, you could be onto something there. And I'm like, that's it. It's going to be in my home. I'm going to start off doing workshops and events, and I'm going to just grow it from there and see where it goes. And a friend of mine had invited me to, I can't even remember the name now, but it was a creative night where you go, I think it was that night, the topic was food. And they had lots of different inspirational people on the panel. One was Anna Barnett, who's a cook, a foodie, and has written a cookbook. And there was another one, a guy who did sustainable living and all this interesting stuff. And I was so close to not going because my friend bailed on me. And I remember saying to my husband, I just don't have the confidence to go on my own. You know what it's like when you have a child?
Yes.
You have your confidence. I don't know why, but you just do. And because I had been in this little bubble looking after Lila, it was quite daunting. But my husband just said, look, you need to push yourself. You've said that yourself. And, who knows what could happen? I was like, right, I'm doing it. I'm going to go.
And they always say that thing at exactly the right moment where you need it. Like, Matt is often quiet for a long time, and then suddenly he comes out with this stuff. Like, he said something the other day, just because people are not engaging doesn't mean they're not watching. And I was like, whoa, because I'd had that like slow day on the blog or something of like, I feel like I'm doing all these things, but it's not converting. And they just come out with these gems, and you're like, thank you, that is exactly what I needed.
That's good. Yeah, you need to hear those. Well, it's very difficult, I think, when you're in it and you're very emotionally attached to it all. You need a voice of reason, and that's good that you've got your husband and I've got my husband. So.
And you just kind of, and like with women as well that I've met along this, just people who are going to champion you. And I feel like so many times there are moments where you're like, it feels hard, or you run out of money, or you can't quite move at the pace that you want to, that it can be very easy to go down that spiral of like, is this actually going to be what I want it to be?
Well, exactly. And, and it's good. That's why I think networking is really great, and meeting new people that have similar mindset, because I've found along this journey, the people that I thought would actually be there for me weren't necessarily there. For whatever reason, I don't know. But I would meet complete strangers and I would tell them what I was doing, and they'd be like, that's amazing. And then next week they'd be emailing me like, how are you getting on with that? Like, if I can do anything to help, let me know. And, and that was really, really great, having that support network. And you only really can get that if you go seeking it, because sitting at home,
going, I've got to put on a bra and take these joggers off and like actually do that. But you've made like huge leaps in terms of your business, and now sort of having people to help pack, and I remember your sort of stories of like pulling yourself out a little bit of the day-to-day stuff so you can actually have that creative vision. How did you know that it was time to go to that place?
Well, it just took time, really. Like, I guess because right at the very beginning, because I did the workshops and events, and once I decided to extend that online to a shop, I just bought in a few products, and I started from my office, packing everything, doing it, and it was really time consuming.
Yes.
And, but the sales were very little, but I just kind of kept at it. Social media is I get all my sales through social media pretty much. And so I was using social media a lot, and I think people loved following my journey from this is from the beginning. And I think people love a success story, don't they? And they find that inspiring. So I think over time I just built it up slowly. And it just got to a point where, well, I had to get more product in, and so I needed a bigger space. So I was outgrowing my office. So I then got a storage unit. And then I thought, in order for me to grow this, I can't be doing all the packing, because if I'm doing all the packing, how am I going to think of it strategically about the business and where it's going to go and how I can grow it? So I actually got some help in, like very casual help. I wasn't able to pay that much, but I'd pay what I could. And yeah, it was on a very casual basis. And that helped because I was able to focus on the buying of products and thinking a bit more, in the future. So yeah, I guess it just grew organically like that. And, more recently I was getting to the stage where we were just getting, I'm not getting loads and loads of orders, but I'm getting enough that it's taking up so much time that's not physically possible for me to do it and run the business. So I made the decision to outsource all my fulfillment, my packaging. So that in itself was, a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. When Indy, my second child, was 6 weeks, I had her strapped to me and I was down at the big yellow storage packing.
The glamour.
Oh, just moments like I would cry and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like this little precious baby. I should be at home snuggled up in bed. But, I'm a bit of, I just never give up. I'm a fighter. I work. I'm not scared of working hard. I know there's a lot of people that be like, this is shit. I'm not, can't do this anymore. But I always think there's some, we've got to make this work somehow. And so, yeah, fulfillment was the best thing I ever did. And actually, in terms of the cost, because I know a lot of people who have online shops, they always think, oh, I'd love to do that, but I can't afford it. But I think if you shop around there, it can actually work out cheaper, which is what I found. So my rental for housing everything is much cheaper than London, because I'm outside of London now where I store it all. And just because they're a fulfillment company, so of course they can buy in boxes and tape and everything a lot cheaper than I could, because they buy it in bulk. So therefore they can actually send it out for cheaper than I could. And they have all these deals with courier companies, which I didn't have. So that's been brilliant. And I decided to hire someone full time, which is crazy really. But
what was that moment like as well? Because I think sometimes I've had that moment, or like my clients have had that moment where they go, I know that it's time, but like I've never managed anybody before, or like what would I say in the interview? How was that process? How did you find that personality that was going to work?
Yeah, and that's the key, the personality. I needed somebody that could help, find ways of increasing revenue and basically just being my, right-hand person and helping me with everything. But also because I actually still run my business from my home, so my office is really in the kitchen, they needed to be flexible enough to be okay with that, because, at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, Lila's coming home from school, it's a bit chaotic and we're still working away. That wouldn't be for everybody. So yeah, it was just about, reaching out and finding the right person. Luckily for me, because I have quite a following on Instagram, when I posted that I was looking for somebody, I was inundated with people wanting to work. And even some people were like, I'd work for free for you. I'm like, well, that won't last very long if you did that. So, but yeah, but it was great. And so I was lucky enough to be able to pick from sort of a wide, caliber of people, I guess. But yeah, it's scary, and I'm probably, maybe I'm not, I don't know how to say this, but you almost have to take that leap. Like I'm probably not making enough sales really to warrant a full-time person. But if I carry on as I'm going, I'm not going to be able to grow the business. So it's one of those chicken and eggs. Like I might be losing money for the next 6 months, but with that person, we're going to be able to create more content. It's going to give me time to be more strategic and think about, different ways of growing the business. And therefore, I need that space. And the other thing that's really important to me is, one of the main reasons why I wanted to start up House Curious is so that I could have the flexibility and still be a mom and be there for my girls. What was happening was I was working 24/7, like ridiculous hours, and I was stressed and probably not the greatest person to be around. I was getting really panicky, and having another body that's working full time, it's allowed me to. I take Fridays off now. I'm not working throughout the night, not every night anyway, but I still work some nights. But I work around my girls more. And I'm giving myself a bit of a break because I felt like I was going to have a bit of a breakdown if I carried on the way I was going. And actually, I just wasn't feeling that creative or inspired because I was working like a dog. Like I just didn't have energy.
Well, you just don't have that mental clarity to actually be able to step back and go, "Ooh, what could we do?" Or what am I excited about? Because you're in it, you're doing the practical things, you're managing inboxes or going, "Oh my goodness, I haven't posted anything today. Maybe I should," and what to do. And it just becomes a bit of a continuous like hamster wheel going round, and I think that's really great. I had an interview with a lady called Felicity, and she always says that she employs people a year too early, or she does things a year too early. So she's like, I have a baby too early, a year too early, or I get somebody on. But actually, when she has that risk with herself, she actually meets it and kind of goes, right, okay, well, we're all in, so let's go for it.
And that is the thing. You have to take risk in business, because if you don't take the risk, you're going to sit idle. And so yeah, I'm at the moment I feel a bit uncomfortable where I am financially. We're fine, but yeah, I'm stretched and it's a challenge. And again, now I'm having to manage somebody, which I didn't have to do that before. So now I've got to think about an extra person, and then like there's obviously all the the finance and, all that goes with it. So yeah, there's a lot to think about, but I think for me, definitely it's the best thing I could have done. And you know what? It's one of those things. I'll give it my all and I will try and make this work. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There's other opportunities out there for me. And I think you just have to have, that faith in yourself somehow. And, I listen to a lot of podcasts of people, and it's amazing, like how many people who are so successful, like millionaires, who, they started off their businesses and they had those moments where it was like tumbleweed and there was no sales coming in, and they were just, thinking, shit, how are we going to like pay anybody? And so I think that is just all part of business. You have your highs and your lows. And I think when you're first starting out, there's always going to be all those challenges. There's never enough people to do everything. There's never enough budget. It's just, you have to come at it from a very creative way and almost a philosophical way, I think, as well. Like what it is will be. Like you just have to go with the flow and try not to let it kill you.
Yeah, definitely. And also other things fall down in your life, those moments when I've sort of had to work really hard, I'm not spending as much time with Matt as I should be, or like I look and go, oh my goodness, I sent that birthday card 2 days late, or they seem like insignificant things, but when they start to build up, and sometimes I have WhatsApp chats with my school friends, and sometimes it's that moment of like, sorry, I haven't replied to this. I'm not winning at life at the moment. And it's not all, sometimes it does have that knock-on effect into other areas of your life, but it's kind of seasonal, isn't it? Sometimes you're like, okay, this is awful and this is a nightmare, but and now it's okay. Or you get that spike or something great then happens. Yeah. I was going to say, where would you like to be in 5 years' time? Do you have a plan for the future? Do you think that far ahead?
I mean, it's funny. I was just sort of thinking about this the other day, and I don't have anything concrete at the moment. I feel like I need to have a session where I just sit down and I think about my next 5 years. I like doing vision boards and things like that, and writing. I feel like writing things down makes it more concrete and you have something to work towards. And that's how I've always done it in the past. But for me at the moment, I think in 5 years' time, I want to have a team around me of people. And I just want the business to be working and I'm paying people and there's a profit. I want it to be profitable, a proper team. so that I can be more creative and visionary, because I think that's where I get most joy from. I don't really love the tech side of things or the finance side of things. And I seem to get bogged down with all this like paperwork and, all that kind of stuff. But, designing my own range of furniture, for example, or collaborating with a bigger brand where I can have like a creative freedom to create a line of something would be great. And I just want to feel a bit more calm and content, because I think lately sometimes it feels a bit crazy. I'm just always feel like I'm just keeping my head above water. I'm trying to think about the girls, and Lila has her, she still sees her physio and a speech person, and she's now got her own little social life going on.
And which annoyingly can sometimes be better than ours.
I know. It's like, Will's like, what are we doing this weekend? Well, I was like, Lila's got a birthday and then she's got a play date. And he's like, well, hang on, what are we doing? Like, we're going to be shipping her around.
We're staying in the car, mate. That's our thing that's going on. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think it's ever evolving. And I feel like, the number of times where I get coaching client inquiries where people are sort of, 38, 39 weeks pregnant going, hi, I really want to start a business and I need a bit of help. But actually, there are times where you can be full steam ahead and really go for things because you've got that time and that headspace and staff in place. But then there are some times where it's like, we just need to keep a cap on this and do what we need to do.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very much now like, I just do what I can do, and that is going to be enough. And, like I used to get very stressed, like, oh, I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. And you just use up all this energy worrying.
Yeah.
Actually, there's no point. It's just like, there's only a certain amount of time in the day. You have a husband, children, you have yourself, people have needs, you've got this job. So it's like, okay, well, I can only put this much time in here. And if I don't get that done, there's tomorrow, and I'm not going to, and I just refuse to work stupid hours because it's just not good on our health and our minds.
And I think that sense of like, just keep going, go for your goals with like a bullseye. I don't want to work in that way. I don't want to work in that hustly sort of striving, I don't want stress in my life. I don't want madness. It's kind of, I never want to have that sort of situation. Oh, what's he done now? What's going to happen? I'm much better with the plain and simple.
Yeah. And I think there is like I felt like for a while there's like this aspiration just to be busy all the time and be like hustling and, working yourself into the ground. It's like, no, there has to be a better way than that, because you're just going to hustle and then you won't be able to hustle anymore because you'll be ill. And we've got to give ourselves a break, I think.
Totally. And having the summer that we've had in the UK, I think it was the best thing for the country, because everybody was like, I do just want to sit in my chair in my garden and being quiet. I mean, August for me, I was looking going, oh, well, where has everybody gone? But it was so nice because I think it made people stop and reflect. And actually people have come back in September like, oh, I'm back. I'm back from my garden.
Yeah, it's been great, hasn't it? It's been very lucky.
So nice. Well, if people want to come and find out more and come to the shop and all that sort of jazz, or book a workshop, where should they go?
Well, if you go to housecurious.co.uk, you can visit my shop there. You can also buy a ticket to any workshops. We have a workshop coming up next week. I don't know when this is going out, so it might be a bit late. And if you would like to follow my journey and behind the scenes of House Curious, you can follow me on Instagram at House Curious. And yeah, we don't have a physical shop at the moment, but I would love to do a pop-up shop towards the end of the year. I am in conversations with some people where we might be able to do a pop-up shop in a like a really cool way. So I don't know, fingers crossed, we'll see. I'm not putting the pressure on myself. I'm just gonna, if it happens, it happens.
How exciting. No, I love, but also as well, you may not have had that headspace to think about that as a possibility before you got your staff in place. So yeah, this is all the magical thing. It's brilliant. But well, thank you so much, Sommer. I've loved chatting, and thank you for sharing your story. It's been brilliant.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to share it with everybody.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would love to hear what you thought of the episode and share any takeaways with me. Come and find me across social media at Nicky Raby, or you can visit the podcast page, nickyraby.com/podcast.